Here is my drawing of the Grinch, and now I'm going to show you step by step how you can draw him too. Follow my tips and repeat after me. Let's go! So I start with the Grinch's nose. I pick a point in the center of the paper and draw the basic outline of the nose, the kind you'd usually draw on some animals. And here, you don't have to worry about perfect proportions, because there are no strict rules for what the Grinch looks like. You can add your own touches, experiment with shapes, and even play with proportions. If something ends up a bit asymmetrical, no worries. I just add some shading. You'll see me using this trick many times in today's drawing. Next, let's draw two lines extending left and right from the nose. Ideally, of course, everything would be perfectly symmetrical. But to get it perfectly symmetrical, you'd need to be an insanely skilled professional. Some artists can pull it off. It looks really impressive. But in most cases, even skilled artists make mistakes. For example, even now my two eyes aren't symmetrical. So how do I fix that? It's actually really simple. I add volume under the right eye, thickening the line in one direction, and on the left eye I thicken it in the opposite direction. See? The lower part becomes more symmetrical, more similar to each other. The differences remain at the top, but we can fix them later by expanding the lines where we need them. Now let's set the approximate width of the Grinch's eyes. Like this on the left, and like this on the right. See, they're not symmetrical at all, but that's okay because we'll color them in later. Let's add a few more wrinkles and curves. After all, the Grinch's trademark is his scowling little face. So having lots of small expression lines only makes it look better. Again, I'm not worrying about perfect symmetry. After all, our character is alive, and it's okay for him to look realistic, like a human or an animal face that is always just a little bit asymmetrical. And now, let's try to make the eyes a bit more symmetrical by adding some eyelashes and a little fur around them. This will also fix that visual feeling where one eye looks too squished. If you want, at this point, you could add even more eyelashes and give a slightly more feminine look to the eyes, but since our Grinch is a boy, we won't get too hung up on the lashes. I'm also adding a few more wrinkles under the eyes. They create the visual impression that the eyes are slightly recessed into the skull. Now let's move on to the pupils. We'll add a little highlight to each pupil. Let's make the highlights simple little circles, as close to the same size as possible. But again, it's not a big deal if one of the circles isn't perfect. When we fill in the pupil with black later, we can easily adjust the shape of the hole. Overall, the face starts to gain life and looks more proportional. I decided to add a bit more fur around the eyes. Using these strokes, we can also tweak the symmetry if there were any major distortions. The Grinch often has a very distinctive nose, kind of like a dog's, that sticks out slightly forward. You can achieve this effect by drawing a line like this around the tip of the nose. Now let's add one of the most recognizable features: thick, powerful eyebrows. I start by sketching the outline of the brows, and then we'll add volume with short, sharp strokes to create the effect of hair. Right now, I'm just establishing the shape, and then I add mass to the brows with these little hatch-like strokes. Again, if the eyebrows end up a bit asymmetrical, we can add some extra volume and make them look more balanced. This is a really handy trick that we use quite often here. Since our Grinch is a furry character, we can add a few more hairs here and there. Later on, we'll add them on the forehead and all over the body. Let's also deepen the fold between the eyes. It looks more striking that way, in my opinion. After all, our Grinch is a grumpy character, so it probably makes sense to give him slightly thicker, more powerful eyebrows. Let's add a bit more mass to them. Alright, now let's mark the face proportions more clearly and decide where everything will go. I'm thinking the chin will be right here, so the mouth should probably end somewhere around this point. Let's draw one line down, and then to the left side, draw a part of the smile upwards. We measure the distance on the other side in the same way, and try to make the line as symmetrical as possible. In this case, we won't have much opportunity to experiment or add thickness to the mouth, so try to make the smile as symmetrical as possible from the very beginning. When the mouth smiles, it sinks a little into the cheeks. In these curved spots, we need to show some depth. This is done with a few extra shadows. Let's not make them too big or thick, but add a little black on the left and right sides. And let's add a few tiny expression lines and some fur-like strokes as well, just light little marks. Because there's too much emptiness and a lack of volume, I decided to add a few more small lines to fill it in. Now let's move on to the mouth and draw a simple line like this. Inside we draw the tongue, and everything else we fill in with black. At the same time, we can make the upper lip a bit more even. Great! It's already starting to look a lot like the Grinch. Let's add a bottom lip. slightly narrower at the corners and a bit wider in the middle. Perfect. Under the lip, we should have the chin. Since there aren't strict standards for how the Grinch should look, I'm doing it according to my own judgment. Something like this. Now we just need to shape the head. The Grinch's head is usually narrower at the top than at the bottom. It's really important to make the head symmetrical. To achieve maximum, I suggest using a simple ruler. Let's pick the widest part of the head. This will be somewhere around the nose. We need to mark equal points on both sides for the widest part of the head. Let's check the distance between this cheek and the nose. In my case, it's 6 centimeters or 2.4 inches. You can use your ruler and make it roughly the same. This way we can set the distance pretty accurately. Since our Grinch is a furry character, we need to give him little tufts of fur on his cheeks. They shouldn't be perfectly identical, because fur naturally grows differently everywhere. The Grinch's head should end behind the chin, with the chin on the foreground. So we draw a line to mark the boundary of the head and add some fur here. We want our Grinch to wear a Christmas hat. Let's decide at what height it will sit. I suggest placing it somewhere around here. I put a point. This will mark the line of the hat. Because the hat needs to sit neatly on the head, we also need to decide how wide the top of the head should be. This part of the Grinch's head is narrower, so with these strokes we immediately set the proportions for the top of the head and the upper boundary. Using these strokes we also add fur. Each tuft should be a little unique and not repeat the one on the opposite side. Add some chaos. Some going up, some going down. After all, our Grinch should look fluffy and wild. You can also enhance this furry texture with light lines following the direction of hair growth. Since the fur curls around the smile, we curl these fur lines in a similar way. The key here is not to overdo it. Even a few lines already create a fluffy effect on the face. Let's add a little extra fluff above the eyebrows right away. We'll definitely come back to this part of the head later. But for now, let's make the hat and put it on the head. The line of the hat shouldn't be straight. It should follow an oval shape. I could draw this oval right away with a marker, but there's a good chance of spoiling everything. So I'll use a regular pencil that we can erase later and sketch the oval with it. I won't draw the hat directly on this line yet, but it gives us a guide to work with. Let me erase a little bit. I can still slightly see this contour, but on camera it's almost invisible. We add the outline of the furry hat along the line we drew with a simple pencil. The line should be as symmetrical as you can get it. Next, we continue with the same furry part of the hat. At the top, we make it as messy as possible to create a fluffy effect. For the hat itself, it's pretty simple. We draw one line for the front part and a second line for the tip. From the bottom, we also bring it to the tip, where the little pom-pom will be. The pom-pom, which finishes the hat, should be slightly asymmetrical. This creates a sense of space. The pom-pom is slightly behind and shifted a little to the left. Let's add a few more lines to enhance the fluffy effect. Right along the edge of this part of the hat, we add shading. We can also put a small shadow on the hat itself to make it look more three-dimensional. The shadow goes underneath and falls slightly to the left side of the hat. Let's not complicate things. Just a little shadow will do. Yes, sometimes you like it when I draw lots of shadows, but replicating that can be pretty tricky. Now we move on to the final part, drawing the neck. The neck will also have a furry collar, so we can handle it the same way I showed you with the hat. That is, draw a contour with a pencil to guide your strokes. In this case, I'm drawing it by eye. I think it should turn out fine. With the fur, it's important to keep the direction correct. The hairs should spread out from the center and go in different directions. Next, the arms. We define the contour of the arms, and under the furry collar, we add some shadows. A little fur on the arms, and some extra shadows under the armpits. We can decorate the body a little with furry lines, which will add fluffiness to our Grinch. Finally, we just need to add a little shadow under the chin. And that's it. We've finished our drawing. Give this video a like, and don't forget to leave a comment. Any comment at all really helps with the channel's growth. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video. Bye.